Thank you for tuning in. This is Lance, your host of Strange Bites, where we take real science and wrap it up in a creative story and serve it in 15 minutes or less. If you're enjoying the show, please hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Give me a follow on social media. And now, let's jump into the next bite. In episode 49, we're going hunting in a place most of us never think about: the hidden city inside a tumor. Cancer has always been the ultimate horror movie killer. You think you finished it, the chemo hits like a silver bullet, most of the cells die, the scans look clear, everyone breathes again. But some cells don't die, they just change. They stop dividing, they go quiet. Scientists call this state cellular senescence, a kind of cellular retirement. The cell is still alive, still metabolically humming, still releasing a strange cocktail of molecules into its neighborhood. Researchers call that cocktail the SASP, the Senescence associated secretory phenotype. Think of it as the whispers of the undead. Most of the time we assume those whispers were proteins, inflammatory signals, growth factors, the usual suspects. But a team at the Wistar Institute in Philadelphia just discovered something far stranger. One of those whispers is sugar. Not just any sugar, fructose, the same sweet molecule found in fruit, honey, and the high fructose corn syrup that sweetens so many of our drinks. Let's walk through what they actually did, step by step, because the detective work is deliciously clever. They started with ovarian cancer cells, high-grade serous ovarian cancer, one of the most aggressive forms. They treated them with cisplatin, a platinum-based chemotherapy that is still mainstay for this disease. Cisplatin is excellent at forcing many cancer cells into senescence. Then the researchers collected the liquid the senescent cells had been sitting in, the conditioned media. The liquid contained every molecule the surviving cells had released over 2 days. They poured that liquid onto fresh, untreated ovarian cancer cells growing in three-dimensional clusters called spheroids. These little tumor-like balls normally stick together tightly. What happened next was unsettling. The cells did not grow faster. They did not become more resistant to dying. They simply loosened. They began detaching from their neighbors and floating free. In ovarian cancer, that first attachment is the critical step before the disease spreads through the abdominal cavity, the process we call metastasis, which is responsible for the vast majority of deaths from this cancer. The team heated the liquid and filtered out the big protein molecules. The detachment effect remained. So whatever was causing the cells to let go was small, much smaller than a protein. Metabolic analysis pointed straight at fructose. The senescent cells were greedily consuming glucose and secreting elevated levels of fructose. When researchers simply added physiological amounts of pure fructose to the normal media, no senescent cells involved, the same detachment happened. When they restored higher glucose levels, the effect largely reversed. Fructose wasn't just acting as fuel, it was acting as a signal. They traced the cascade further. Fructose altered mitochondrial metabolism inside the neighboring cancer cells. That change ultimately suppressed the production of cholesterol. Cholesterol is not just the stuff your doctor worries about in your blood. Inside a cell membrane, cholesterol acts like molecular glue. It helps keep the membrane stable and helps cells stick to one another and to the surrounding tissue. Lower the cholesterol and the glue weakens. The cell becomes less adhesive. They slip free. The team confirmed this in mice. Animals that received the secretome from senescent cells developed substantially more metastatic tumors, even though the cancer cells themselves weren't proliferating faster. Mice fed a higher fructose diet also developed more widespread metastatic disease than mice given the glucose. And when the researchers genetically disabled the cancer cell's ability to process fructose, fewer cells wandered off. For the first time in a living preclinical model, they showed that it was the molecules these treatment-surviving cells released, not the cells themselves, that were driving the spread. Aidan Cole, the postdoctoral researcher who led much of the work, put it plainly. Their study is among the first to show that a nutrient, fructose, can act as one of those signals. Senior author Catherine Aird and the team published the findings in the journal Nature Aging in 2026. This is still preclinical science, cell culture and mouse experiments. It does not prove that drinking soda causes ovarian cancer to spread in people, but it does open a door that has been closed. It suggests that the very cells we leave behind after chemotherapy may be whispering instructions that make the remaining cancer more mobile. And one of those instructions is written in sugar. It also raises quiet, practical questions. What happens when a patient is already taking a statin that lowers cholesterol? What happens when the diet is already high in fructose from sugary drinks? The researchers are careful. They're not making clinical recommendations yet, but the implications are sitting right there on the lab bench, waiting. And that brings us to the part of the story that lingers long after the data ends. What does it mean that a common dietary sugar can function as a message between cancer cells? We like to think of metabolism as simple accounting. Energy in, energy out. Calories burned, fuel consumed. But metabolism is also language. Cells are constantly talking to one another through the molecules they release and the molecules they take up. In this case, the survivors of chemotherapy are not merely damaged, they are broadcasting, and the broadcast is sweet. There's something almost mythic about it. The treatment that is supposed to destroy the enemy leaves behind a remnant that teaches the remaining army how to escape. The sugar we pour into our bodies every day, celebrated, marketed, embedded in the modern food supply, turns out to be capable of carrying instructions that loosen the bonds holding a tumor together. It forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The boundary between nutrient and signal is thinner than we imagined. The same molecule that sweetens a strawberry can, under the right conditions, help a cancer cell slip its leash. If senescent cells after chemotherapy are actively remodeling the metabolic neighborhood in ways that favor metastasis, then clearing those cells or interrupting the fructose signal itself could become part of the treatment conversation. If dietary fructose can amplify the effect even without chemotherapy, then the conversation about sugar and cancer may need to move beyond does it feed the tumor into the more subtle territory of does it teach the tumor how to lead. And on the deepest level, this discovery whispers something about itself. A cell that has stopped dividing is not dead. It is still participating in the conversation of the tissue. Death and life, silence and signal, are not clean opposites inside the body. They blur. We are learning that the molecules we call food are also capable of carrying meaning. That the chemistry of survival can be co-opted by the chemistry of escape. In the end, the strange bite is this. The sugar on the table may be more than sweetness. In the right context, it can become a message. One that tells a cancer cell it is free to go. And once a cell learns how to leave, the story is no longer just about the tumor. It's about everything that comes after. That's it for today's bite. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, please hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Give me a follow on social media. Until next time, stay strange and question everything.